Good evening and welcome everybody to the Startup Funding webinar by Turnip. Today we have with us Mr. Govind Kedia, who's the Managing Director of Arctic Innovation Consulting. He's one of the top voices in the field of intellectual property rights and startup funding in India. He regularly advises clients in deep tech domains such as electric vehicles, drones, computer software, gaming, blockchain, semiconductors, and he has been supporting and consulting a lot of startups in India. He's also a globally renowned IPR specialist. He has been awarded as the IM. He's awarded as the top 300 IPR strategists in the world by IM Media. So, without further ado, we'll bring on Mr. Govind Kedia for a session on startup funding, one of the most important building blocks for successful startups. So,
Uh,
Govind, thank you very much for your time. Really pleasure and honor to have you. And the stage is yours, and I'll be around in the
Sure.
backstage.
Thanks, Rahul. Thanks, Rahul, for having me, and always, great to come on Turnip. Turnip, platforms have been fairly regular on the platform, and really happy to be here again. And I would like to keep my entire conversation fairly interactive. So whosoever is online, feel free to interact because I think I don't want to make it like a boring one-way communication and talking about something which is not useful for you. So we can talk about anything. Feel free to put your questions, interact because I'll try to be asking question, trying to understand your understanding, uh, and also try to kind of help you understand a bit more about the business funding and startup funding area. Interesting, of course, the question comes that while my introduction says I'm into patents and IP strategy, why I'm here talking about startup funding. And I also thought myself, and I did ask Rahul, hey Rahul, maybe should we get somebody who is doing the money, or should I be coming and talking about this topic? But interestingly, most of our clients have been startups, a lot of founders, and I've been deeply involved with a lot of deep tech fund, VC funds, angel funds, as their team member in terms of evaluating, helping them, understand the startup. So I thought that maybe I can share some learnings in terms of how investors look at startups, what are their metric, also talk about this topic in terms of very practical manner, where if you are thinking to raise funds or you are running your startups, then you can think from this narrative as such, right? And I was fortunate to host a lot of people on my LinkedIn as well, where I got to understand a lot of nuances around funding. So I'll be sharing those, but let me start with something which was something caught my attention, and would request Rahul to quickly share my screen. I'll just quickly share and also I want to uh, taken I have some cough, so I'll be coughing in middle, so please excuse me for coughing in middle, but I'll try to be as much as present as your want to justify your time here today with us, right? So let me just quickly go through what's the snapshot of our startup economy, right? And this was very interesting report by Inc 42, and this was fairly intensive, data driven, data startup funding scenario in India, right? And of course the larger picture was that India is growing at a very fast pace. Aadhaar users, mobile users is off the roof, and it is constantly growing. And of course that gives a lot of opportunity for all the new age business, new age ideas to cater those new audiences which are increasingly being added, right? So of course India as a entrepreneurial ecosystem is definitely growing at a very fast pace. And recently, of course, honorable prime minister also kind of highlighted that we are filing a lot of patents, being very innovative as an economy, right? So I think it is going to be a very interesting space to be in the next 5-6 years for the Indian startup, right? So if you look at India, is of course the third largest startup ecosystem globally, right? And of course, we have been able to create disruptions, and not only in India, but we were able to create, as a country, produce some very very good high quality startups which were able to dominate the world in terms of the market, in the world, in terms of the in terms of what they are doing in respective areas, right? So there are around 68,000 plus startups. Of course, 100 plus have been unicorn, showing immense potential in scalability and homegrown ventures, right? And then of course a lot of jobs have been created. A whooping $142 billion were raised by Indian startups, and they have been fueling the economy, right? So, and if you think about, there are close to 6,000 startups which secured some funding, some way or other, maybe angel, maybe serious funding, and there are a lot of investors as well. Almost 10,000 plus investor or funds were helping them, putting the money, right? And of course the entire valuation is fairly impressive, and a lot of M&A is happening as well. Um, and it's also a good sign that while the startups are being built, it's also investors are getting some exits. Some internet companies are also got listed recently, and of course the entire ecosystem is poised to grow, right? And that is what the opportunity is, and that is where this topic, I think, Rahul, we can take off the presentation now. So just to set the context that there is immense opportunity, in terms of the money available, right? Especially in the early stage, in various forms, is really something that opens a lot of opportunities for aspiring entrepreneurs, right? But let's take a step back. Now I have set the context that while there's an opportunity available, let's take a step back and understand what are the essential blocks of building a startup, right? And I would like to have some comments here by the audiences here, that what in their head believe that, okay, what are the essential building blocks for startups, right? Can you comment some of that? I can see the comments, Rahul, and in case I'm missing some comments, just put it on the chat as well, on the private or personal. But would love to understand, people who are attending this discussion, is to understand what is their view on what are the essential building blocks for the startups. Maybe I'll wait for 30 seconds, and then we'll.
Yeah, yeah. There's a lag of 15 seconds to 45 seconds depending
Sure.
on the latency.
Yes,
Um,
not a problem, Rahul. We can, it's no problems. We can wait for a minute. So people who are commenting, Bharat, Anand, Subodh, uh, Dr. Pradeep, would love to know, what do you feel? What are the essential building blocks for a startup?
yeah, capital is definitely one of them.
Okay, yeah, definitely capital is there. What else? Okay, so see, if you think about startups, right? I mean, there are, Neha said break even. Okay, funding. Anand says funding. Capital, definitely, as Rahul said. Okay, let's wait for one more second. Idea, definitely.
Mm.
Uh, Manpower, great. Idea, great. Very nice. I think that gives a very good direction to us, in terms of what people feel that the essential, um, essential building blocks of a startup, right? And Dr. Keshav, we will pick on your question as well, but let's go one by one. Uh, Anand, incubator, finding and prioritizing market opportunities, designing business model, validating minimum viable product, learning whether to persevere or pivot. Okay, needed for society, problem to be identified. Great, mentor. I think a lot of these answers are all of the answers are really relevant, right? But if you think about it, uh, any business, right? The what is the essential building block of a startup is the need, desires, and problem and fantasies of your eventual customer, right? Eventually, there is something which needs to be addressed in terms of either it's a need of a customer or the desire of a customer or a problem of a customer, or there is a fantasy that you are trying to solve with your idea, right? A lot of people said idea, right? So idea needs to first qualify whether it is, kind of doing the NDPF of your customers, right? That's very, very important. That's the first essential building blocks, right? Then, of course, why it is unique, what is the IP around? I mean, not going in the lecture of IP, but why it is, better, why it is, and it just does not have to be all the time. It's just an execution, which is your IP, right? IP is not only mean, the formal IP. It could be your team. It could be like a lot of people said mentor. Mentor could be also your great IP, that a mentor who is a secret, sauce for your success, right? So IP means that why there is a certain sense of differentiation, right? And it could be anything. It could be like a long list of IP which could be there. It could be your skill as well, right? Your experiences as well, right? And then, like I said, once you figure out this NDPs and these things, then a lot of elements come in. There is a clear value proposition. There is a strong business plan. How the money will flow, how the money will not flow, whether it is feasible or not, right? Whether there are compliance issues or not. Uh, then the funding also comes in. How the finance will work in this segment, right? So first, when you are talking about funding in a startup, think about what are your blocks of a startup, as a building block, why it is relevant, why the startup is basically going to exist, right? Then the funding comes in, right? In the today's market, if you look at what is abundant is money, what is not abundant is great businesses, right? So I think a lot of investors are out there thinking about, where to put money, where they can get the best results. So focus first. I think I want to set this context of startup funding in India as a basic building conversation is for funding a startup. A good startup is a must, or a good founder with a clear perseverance, with a clear track record, or somehow a success is essential, right? That's the basic requirement of a business funding, any funding for that matter, right? So I think that is where I want to start with this conversation, right? That Bharat says that if the startup idea related to rural people, government release any funds for our idea. Great. First, I think, build that value, that okay, what is it that rural people will be supported on, how it will benefit, right? Government works on social impacts, government also works on a financial impact, right? So I think essential is to also look at the value creation exercise, right? What is the value that you are creating, right? um, then the question of the funding comes in, right? So I think that is one thing I want to tell everybody who is listening in, that focus on the value first, right? That whatever you are building, the value of the startup or you're talking about, and it has been discussed many, many times with many, many founders I have spoken to, that unless you have a very clear, identified, startup, building blocks, it's very hard to secure funding, because otherwise it's just a fluff, right? You are just putting iski topi uske sir, uski topi uske sir, right? That's not a real funding works in, right? So that is one first conversation I wanted to build at, right? Now the second question I have for the group is that in their head, in your head, why startup need funds? Can you list down your reasons that okay, presuming you have a startup, why do you need funds? Can you list down some ideas?
Yeah, interesting question. If anything, it's making me think. Why do you need funds? And then it's a good exercise for introspection. So, because I think very simple answer is scaling, but then what is scaling, and scale what? Do you want to scale the team? Do you want to scale, some, what aspect?
Okay, let's wait for a few answers. Then
Yeah,
we'll.
yeah. Let's wait for. There are at least 4 to 5 startups who have registered. Uh, so I think predominantly it's academic audience,
Sure.
but
No,
I
that's
did
fine.
see
Even
the
academic
feedback
audience,
from.
I think, look, I think whosoever is on the call, I would
Yeah,
encourage, there's no wrong answer, maybe
yeah,
Rahul can
yeah,
delete
yeah,
all these answers, comments, but, but post your ideas, why startup need funds, maintain the
yeah.
supply chain, run the business, to check the
To run the
feasibility.
business.
Great. What else? Just list down. It's like, somebody talked about crowdfunding. I'm just trying to collect the crowd ideas. Why do startup needs funds? Why do we need funds? Develop MVP. Okay, great. To make process of ideation to development simple. Okay.
Yeah, let me write my answer in the chat. I don't want to say it here.
Sure. To build a team. Absolutely. Great. To validate the idea. Great. Can we start a startup when we are employee of an organization? I think, Chandrakala, we will pick this question in the Q&A section, but let's go with the flow. The question is, initially it needs a huge money to begin with. Okay. To acquire user and occupy niche. Okay. Great. So I think we have to help develop the country in various fields. For example, Tata Group, which has started India and now across the world. Okay. To do the research for improvement. Okay. Okay. I think a lot of answers already to kind of build the context now. So look, I think most of the time where we get it wrong is that we don't introspect and very very clearly put why do we need money. Money is tonic, absolutely, but tonic for what? Is it for cough? Is it for cold? Is it for survival? Is it what? Right? When you are going to raise or think about money, you have to really narrow it down, that why do you need the money? Do you need for idea validation, basically for funds to primarily validate the business idea, do some market research, create your MVPs, how much cost it will take, why do you need this? Running a business is a very fluffy term, right? I mean, uh, or prototype develop, founding team formation. I think, Rahul put building a team, then thinking about what kind of core team is required, what kind of salaries they will hold, what is it that they will do, right? And of course all these conversations are different in different stages, right? Presuming that there are a lot of academic audience here, right? And I'm sure, um, if any of you are running late stage, or somewhere you are already having customer and sitting here, just raise a flag so that at least I'll keep the conversation context. But presuming that there are a lot of academic audience here, you think about, okay, I have this great idea, I need hundreds and thousands of dollars and hundreds and thousands of dollars to build this idea. That's not the case. You're just thinking an ideal world scenario, imagining that somebody will a truckload of money will put it on your desk and say, sir, please create your idea, take it forward. That does not happen in the real world, right? presuming that you are a very pre-revenue, pre-idea, pre-seed, the first is to figure out the essential building block of your idea, build it like a business startup, then break it down that to validate your idea, how much money do you really need? If you're thinking that, okay, I'll need 10 crore of rupees, what is it that you can do in 1 lakh? That's the question you have to ask yourself. And then slowly build from there, right? I mean, in the real world, that is how it is, right? Or you can just keep dreaming about it. I'm sure universe is funny. Maybe you will get it, but a serious funding agency, be it angel, be it, we'll discuss these, terminologies later. But all I want to put it today is that, why startup need funds is to be very, very clear on why do you, kind of what is exactly you need, right? So, so that is one, that is one thing that you have to first understand, right? So I'll not, build on this further, but first I want to kind of uh, so Dhanush says, so according to you, what is the best way to get funding for a startup idea? Like now I have an idea, I don't know. Okay, Dhanush, stick to the end. If I tell you everything right away, then you will not stick, right? So, stick till the end. I'm sure you will get the answer for sure. But let's go step by step, right? So first we figure out what is your startup idea look like, right? Why it is important, why this idea is a business idea, why it will generate, what problem it solves, what is the problem, what is the desire it solves, right? So first figure it out. Second, you figure out why startup need funds, right? um, so second is that, right? Then the second. Now the third is, uh, why do you think funding, business fund or business gets funded by external people? Just put your ideas that why people put money in startups, including government. uh, I would love to hear your view that if you had money, why would you put in startup? Let's go that route also. I will answer all these questions. What government funding mechanism available? How much will startup can get as funding? But the question I'm asking right now is, why do you think that people put money in the startup, right? What's their motivation, including government? Or who funds these business? I mean, this could be one more question. I mean, whatever you know, there's no wrong answer. Whatever you know, why do people put money in the startups? Who fund these startups? At least just tell, just share your understanding of this. People put money in startup to earn more. Great, absolutely. What else? Bhushan says that, and then Rahul, you mentioned, yeah, government want to put money to roll out and generate employment. Great, absolutely. Okay. If I come with NGO or trust point of view and I'm investor, then it helps in developing things in various fields which leads to develop the country. Okay, social impact. I think Bhushan has already mentioned that they believe this idea would work. Absolutely, but why? What the idea will work, but what will they get? Mentoring and encouraging young startups. Okay. See, simply if you think about, there are two dimensions, right? One is the financial, or people who are looking to generate return, and then there is a social dimension, right, where the governments and CSR funds and all those come in, right? Now think about these three questions again, right? What is it that you are doing as a startup, right? What are the essential block of a startup? What is your NDPs? What's your IP? what's your value proposition, what's your effective team, all these questions. Second, why do you need fund, right? And third, why should anybody be funding you, right? First is to figure out these three questions, right? Then it comes, what are the sources, right? I think, Neha, as I said, there are two dimensions. One is financial. I'm looking for great returns, right? And the second is the social. If it is a government or a CSR fund, they want to create an impact, right? Government wants to create more employment, more startups, more jobs. But think about it. Why they will give you money uh, if there is no social impact you can prove, right? There's no clear business startup idea that you have, right? Uh, yeah. So Dhanush, sharing the company's share is a mechanism to raise funds, right? That I'm not here there yet. I'm just trying to build that uh, impact in the market. Doesn't mean anything. They just want money, right? You put your 1 rupee in a stock market in expectation of what? In expectation of return, right? You put 1 rupee in a Tata stock, and next year I'll probably have 10 rupees, right? Because you trust Tata. You trusting Tata because that is Tata, right? Um, so that's how the startup funding also works, right? That when you think about as an investor, right? When you will put your 100 rupees in a stock in a company, when you believe that they are going to do really well, I'm going to get really, really wealthy, or you pay saying that, hey, that guy is helping rural economy, and because I'm a very good person and I have a charity budget of whatever, or I need to create impact as a human, I'm giving you this 100 rupees, go and create impact, right? These are the only two dimensions, no? So I think that is, these are the 3-4 questions that is like a anchoring question, right? When you are thinking about startup funding and seeing news that, hey, that guy has got 1 million funding, 2 million funding, and all that, it's very easy to get carried away and thinking that money is abundant, but it is abundant for whom there is a very clear path to profitability, either in a financial or in a societal or a social impact, right? So I think that is where I want to start this conversation, and this context setting itself has taken 30 minutes, right? So I think we have 30 minutes more. But before I hand over to the questions, and now we can take questions, I think few things I do want to, kind of start with the sources of funding. I think that's where I think a lot of questions were there. So I'll probably, this is my probably, so again, all these questions are connected, right? Now, once you've figured out what is your startup, why do you need money, why others should fund you, then is the next question, who will fund me? What are the various sources that I can go to, right? Now, I want to again ask this question to ensure that people, so who do you think you should go for money, right? Just, put your answers that, okay, now you're established, presuming that you have established all these 3-4 questions, what are the various sources of startup funding in your head, in your understanding? I'm here to tell you that, but whatever you know, just tell us so that I don't repeat myself. Government. Okay. Okay. Only government? Government responsible for everything? Okay. Customers, investors. Okay. Who investors? What high net individual angel investors, grants, or incubation center. Great, Rahul. Thank you. Uh, you know the answers, making my life difficult. But see, I think first thing is that you know it goes in a order of personal savings, friends and family, grants. Then, as Rahul said, incubation center. Look, government is very broad. Like government, Modi ji se जाके पैसा नहीं मांगोगे ना यार आप. मतलब you'll not write to PM and say, sir, I have an idea. Can you give me 10 lakh rupees? Right? I mean, that's not the way. Right? There is all these incubators with very very specific. Every state government have. A lot of cities have. I mean, a lot of colleges have. I know a lot of private colleges and government colleges have incubators, right? Where they take some equity in the company, they will incubate you. Then the angel investor. Who is angel investor, by the way? Okay. I think last question. One thing I do want to understand with people: who are angel investors? Can anybody write their answer? Who in their head is angel investor? CEO of different companies who think of investing in startups. Why only CEOs? No. See, angel investors again are the people who are looking to get a very good return on their money and may not write a very large check. Very simple. Okay. Absolutely. I think Bhushan did it very nicely. Who gives small funds with more risk. Right? They could be angel because angel is like, when you are dying, they are coming to rescue you. Maybe some are devils, some are devil investors. They will take a lot of stake. Some will be like really angels. They will give you guidance. They will give you money and all that. Right? So I think, look, I think with that, I would like to hand over to more questions. But again, I want to anchor the entire conversation around these 4 or 5 questions that you need to ask. Right? Rest everything is logistics. You can find everything on ChatGPT, Bard, online. But what I want to build your takeaway is that before you even think about funding, think about these 4 or 5 questions. Make a very, not in your head, but write it down, and then you think whether it sounds logical or not. Right? I think you are the best critic in that way. Right? So I think that's how to approach the business funding as a subject. Understanding that a lot of academic audience is there, and for startup people, I know that I may not just done the justice so far, but happy to take up questions now. And any specific questions, Rahul, I think over to you.
Yeah,
I have forgotten the
yeah.
plan.
I can ask the first question, and then I think by that time I think we'll start getting the questions from the audience. So this question I came up just with these questions that you were asking, so it led me to think. So you said that about the validation of the idea. That's, I think, the first step. I think, what do you do as a startup, and the fact that you want to aim at validating your idea before you get into the market of funds. So what all metrics would be there for me to convince other people that this idea is validated? Should it be revenue? Should it be users? Should it be market, growing market? So what kind of things, practically people might look into?
Sure. No, absolutely great question. And of course, look, I think the easiest answer is it depends on what you are building, right? I mean, if you're building something very complicated, you know, then of course it may require a lot of different metric. But see, start with the problem, right? Idea validation is starts with a problem that, okay, this is a problem, right? And this is a problem where my idea aims to solve it. Right? The metric could be number of users, number of feedbacks, how existing solution is being implemented, what is their cost against what is your cost, and how you are going to build it. Right? Look, it varies for every different technology. Like space tech, idea validation itself could take 6 years to just develop that idea, right? But maybe in the space of, say, chemical, or let's say biodegradability or something, it may not take that much, right? I mean, it will
Mhm.
just take, say, 6 months, 1 year to kind of build this, right? So the validation metric will change and depending on the industry, but as such, look, it starts with that problem and how well you can solve the problem. And
Mhm.
end of the day, investor want this confidence that whatever solution you have developed, it's going to fly. There's something called as product market fit. There had been an entire conversation on this topic with one of the deep tech conversation on my LinkedIn. But product market fit sometimes comes very late. You start with the idea validation. Series A, you're just doing some bit of work, some bit of customers. You sell it to 5 customers and see, okay, how it will evolve, right? Some companies don't even achieve after getting IPO. Paytm, jokingly is one example, right? It takes a while to get there. So that is fine. But as long as there is some practical metric on the problem and what you're building is there, I think you're in a right path.
Yeah. Thank you. So, shall we take the ones that are here already?
Yeah, just I think you run the questions.
Okay.
I ask me.
Yeah. So, let me put it on the screen. So, according to you, what is the best way to get funding or investment for a startup idea?
Look,
It
I
is
think the
broad,
best
but
is
yeah.
to not get funding at all. You know,
Uh,
Honestly, I think the best is to not get funding, because once you take a fund from anybody, of course, I mean, even now grants come with a lot of riders and a lot of because see, funding is not a free money. It's a loan, right? Once you take a loan, then you are accountable to somebody, right? I think that's biggest myth that people carry is
mhm.
that once I get funding, I'll be successful. No, your work starts because you're taking somebody else money and now you have to give returns to that person, right? So best way is to not get funding. Build it bootstrap. Do it. Old school method, right? That's the best way. But even if you
Yeah.
have to get funding, maybe start with personal funds, friends and family, grants, angel investors, then go with the next round, right? What's the Okay? What's the role of incubation center? Absolutely,
For
I think
execute.
yeah. Sorry, uh, incubation centers are really good. I think there are a lot of good incubation centers. I know T Hub, Sign, a lot of I think Amity has one. A lot of colleges. I think all the IMs have one. All the ITs have one, right? So I think all the incubate IM Lucknow, Yamini, looks after this, amazing incubator in Noida, right? I know that these incubators are really great place to start your idea, right? Of course, you have to part some equity and all that, but they are a great platform to learn, right? Absolutely. I think their job is to help validate the idea, get you started. But look, it's a long journey. I think even in incubation, you have to prove yourself, because end of the day, incubation center also has a fiduciary duty to tell their stakeholders that, hey, this is the impact we have created. This is the look. They also want to eventually make some money once you get next round of funding, right? So as I said, you are taking others people money, right? So use it that way, right?
Yeah. Yeah. So, we have a question from Dhanush. Like, if you are having a startup idea, what will be your steps to grow this startup idea to a big business? Okay.
Step
So,
by
basically,
step.
all of entrepreneurship.
Yeah. No, step by step. I think one step at a time. Look, it doesn't happen overnight. Look, I'm sure there are businesses built overnight, but they also fall in overnight. I think the more I hear with people who have been there, done that, uh, it is always one step at a time, right? Build the idea to a level where you are able to put it a value on the table, and then it will grow automatically if you're putting enough value on the table, right? So I think that's my answer. I know it's not the great answer, but a broad level question will only invite broad level answer, right? There are a lot of questions, Rahul, in the start when we started.
Yeah.
So maybe
In the
I can
beginning.
start
Yeah.
how we writing.
Yeah. Let me fetch them. I think that crowdfunding question we could take. No, that was the
Yes.
first question, and I think it was a relevant question also in some. Yes, Dr. Keshav Nandi.
Yeah. I think look, there has been there have been crowdfunding. Of course, as a platform, there have been a lot of crowdfunding platforms, at least very popular in West. India, of course, unfortunately, SEBI and all these guidelines are very strict, right? I mean, there has been some people trying like Tyke, and they have really gone under now, because SEBI is very very tight regulatory body where and how you can invest your money, right? I mean, and which is fair, which is fair, because I think India being country where a lot of mis-selling can happen, I think they have been very very clear that, look, we will not allow these things, right? But there are platforms. I think I don't see that as a problem. That if you have a product which is hard product, I think there are a lot of I'm forgetting the name, but there are a lot of tech platforms where you list down your product, and then people can pre-order your device, and then you can kind of take it. Forgetting the name, Rahul. I think it's very popular when Shark Tank comes of the US. They keep on telling about this platform.
The
But
crowdfunding platform.
there have been some platforms like that. But in India, unfortunately, because of the regulations, a lot of crowdfunding is not happening. And to some extent, of course, it is also to avoid mis-selling. I mean, but there are funds. I do want to add here that there is one company I know for sure called Campus Fund, who only invest in student startups, right?
Mm,
And look, student startups are not rare in India. I mean, we work with a couple of student startups very early days. If you are really passionate and really good about what you have done, and driven from a very very clear value proposition, look, honestly, student founders have really great chances to raise funds in today's economy, right? At least a lot of early stage funds are there, 100x VC, campus funds. They are looking for great bright folks,
mm,
but driven by the conversation we already had when we started the conversation, right? That they are not going to fund just because they will see their interest of finance, and very very
yeah.
clearly. I mean, and of course the founder quality, how well you have ability to execute the ideas, and so on and so forth, right? So that's, yeah, I think
Yeah,
that
for
would be.
micro lending, I know social entrepreneurship. There are several platforms. I even invested in rangde.org. It's very old, more than 10 years or something old. They have great founding team, and whom I personally knew via a friend. And they lend out to very very small farmers and women entrepreneurs, and they have a huge audience base. And similar some platforms you can see online, Keto is there, which is funding social causes. It's not entrepreneurship, but some are there in this domain. Okay, and they also, RBI has tightened regulations a lot. They are also not very free to operate.
Hmm.
So let's have one question from earlier. What government funding mechanisms are available in India, and how much will startups can get as funding?
Just a second. What are the government packages in India? How much starts? See, I think the government is has said like 50 lakhs, up to 50 lakhs you can get grants. But see, mostly these are via incubators and so on and so forth, right? So I think as such, there are like appointed agencies, right? I mean, once your startup registered and you have some ideas, I think best is to go to these funding grants. So let's say if you're a medtech, or if you are a deep tech robotics, so there are places of incubators where they're saying that, okay, you are responsible to put money in these kind of spaces, right? Like DSCI, I know, like they are into cybersecurity, right? So they handhold help on the cybersecurity startups, right? There are then robotics, and then there are bio and all that, right? So I think let's say, presuming that you are in the green hydrogen and carbon solutions, right? So you have to look at sustainability accelerators and incubators which have been appointed by the government of India, and then you can talk to them and again build why your startup is worthy for their grant or investments, right? Of course, some agencies have the mechanism that they will incubate you mandatorily, they will take some equities. That's a different logistics, right? But taking money from the government is via these agencies or incubators. That's how it works.
Sanjeev Hiremat has this question: what is Series A, B? Like this taxonomy.
See, I think, look, these are of course series A, B, C, D goes till H and all that, right? I think if you think about from a very, very stage perspective, right? There are few stages that we have to think about. First is pre-seed. Pre-seed means there that you are validating your idea, you're developing your prototype, you are assimilating your founding team, you are just starting up to set up your legal and administrative things. That's called a pre-seed. Like, I trust this is the stage where people put money on people, right? They will not put money on the business, but they will put money on the people. That, hey, I trust Rahul seems to be a great guy, he can execute this, he's expert in this area, I have seen his work and I'll put my money. So that is called pre-seed, right? Then it calls seed stage. Seed stage is where you develop your product development, market research, building a team. It's like seed. Typically when you use in terms, it's like seed stage. Then series A and all those things are like early stage, where you are improving, you need operational cost, you need more marketing and sales, you need to find more customers. So it's like series, it's like early stage investments, right? So series A, B, C, D, all these are like, let's say A, B, C is like a early stage investments. Then you enter, once you pass the early stage, you go in the growth stage, where you are scaling your operation in different countries, going in different markets, geographies, different team, and infrastructure is needed. Then you go in later part of the funding, right? Then need growth stage, which could be series C in that manner, or then the expansion stage, right, where you are going for large scale manufacturing and all that, right? So excuse me for that. So, and then the late stage. So all these series are just rounds of things, right? So doesn't
Yeah.
mean.
Yeah. Yeah, I'll have like one or two questions. Maybe it may add to this conversation. At least Anupam Mittal in Shark Tank India, he has this very simple framework, this team TAM timing.
Yeah.
So is it that simple? Or also, uh, like startups maybe don't have a team in the beginning, or TAM may not be, people may not know about TAM, or if there's a niche, maybe it doesn't have TAM. So is it so that you are doomed if you don't have a big TAM, or you don't
No, it's
start with
not.
a
Look,
team?
I think, look, that's where the whole motivation and everything comes in, right? Not every startup in India or everywhere you go is like $1 billion company. Look, how many $1 billion companies can you count, right? Are we not surviving as economy, right? Look, I mean, of course they are sharks. They are
Yeah.
looking for return on their money, right?
Yeah.
And for them, that's a metric.
Hmm.
And it's not wrong. Look, if I have to put my 100 rupees in stock market, I'll put in some, Tata stock, if I want safe return. But if I want,
Hmm.
multiple return, I'll probably put in very small penny stock and then believe that it will work because I know the founder and they will execute, right?
Hmm.
But it may not get into Tata stage. Like, I'm not
Hmm.
expecting that. Look, I'm only looking for indicator that I will get my return on money. Okay.
Hmm.
Anupam has this metric which worked for him,
Yeah.
team time and these things, right? But it does not mean that all the startup should be looked from that lens, right?
Hmm.
You are not doomed, but you have to find a reason. Like, when we started the conversation,
With
was
the
this a thing?
questions. Hmm.
I think as long as you are clear with that,
Hmm.
I don't see it as a problem. Look, there will be people who are out there looking to get return. As long as you can justify the return and you can give them that, hey, put money on me, I'll give you good returns.
Hmm.
And all these
Absolutely.
people operate from power law. Power law means that they know that 90 or 95% of investments will go bust.
Hmm.
All these
So they're
venture
looking
capital,
for. Hmm.
they know that.
Yeah.
They will only bet on you, on your, these things, right? So,
Yeah.
um,
So actually, I have one more question, but I think let's take from the audience. Dhanush
If
is
I'm
asking.
having
So
to
if
pitch my idea
pitching,
to investors, then what should I have to take care of it? I need funding. Look, again, focus on the three questions we started with, right? What your startup is all about. Why do you need funding? Why you, and what will they get in return? Simple. I think it's it's like selling a simple idea, a simple pen, right? The classic sales interview question. Sell me the pen,
hmm,
sell me the idea. That's it. I think if you can sell the idea, that's what is needed, right? Of course, has to be
yeah,
genuinity in this, right? Don't scam people, right?
yeah. So from like not scamming people, one more question that I have is, obviously investors are looking for bigger returns, let's say 10 times growth or something like that. But isn't it like for businesses, some business to grow 10 times, is it like too much to ask, too much to expect from startups that they grow 10 times? Or is it like normal that it could be so that, you have, 10 times kind of growth?
Look, I think if you look at average return, everybody in their portfolio, see, simple. Just take a very simple metric. If you put your money in equity in a long term, like in 10 years, the history says that you will get 15%, 15 to
Hmm.
18% at max, the best case scenario. Right? If you put in debt, you will probably get 7, 6, 7, 8%. Right? If you put in securities, probably less. Look, as investors, everybody is looking at 20, 30, 40 on a portfolio level. Of course, some will be success, some will be bust.
Hmm.
Right? They know this. Every investor know this. Right? Not everybody will hit six on every ball. Everybody
Hmm.
knows. As long as you can build that confidence that you will be that one guy who will
Hmm.
put that return, they will put the money. But then again, as I said, once you say that, then ideally it's your responsibility to also honor that. I mean, you're not there to scam
Hmm.
people.
Yeah.
I'm presuming that all the people who are listening are good people. They are not,
Hmm.
they have a real intention to do something, right?
Hmm.
So
So,
I
last questions from the audience will be great. I think we have still 5-10 minutes from Govind sir. So, please in the chat, ask your last questions, and we will take them up. So, meanwhile, while they are asking, let me ask maybe one more general question. So, for college students, is there any possibility for going for some VCs or angels? Uh, because actually, I was also thinking this just in the morning when I read a LinkedIn post that some college graduate was paid 1.6 crores by Zomato as their package. So whatever, 60 lakh was the cash component. And also it's not it's quite normal that many Silicon Valley companies, they offer 2 crores as the package. So I mean, we are getting a lot of these kind of blockbuster success stories in placements. But does it ever happen like somebody got funded 2 crores straight out of college? Or so what are the options of, say, college students?
look, end of the day, look, all these people get paid all these salaries. Look, I wish I could do engineering again and be that person. Look, founders don't make that kind of money, even the startups, right? I mean, look, being very honest, I think these are always bell curving things, right? 10% of or 5% of the people will always be in those 2 CR, 3 CR, whatever the amount is, right?
Hmm.
Look, end of the day, it's the value that they bring. I'm sure Zomato have paid that person. I'm sure he must have some skill.
Yeah.
Can have some skill, right? Which is something that they see a lot of value in there, right? I
Hmm.
know a lot of startup founders who were students in third year, fourth year. They picked up as a project. They delivered. They built the prototype. They were able to
Yeah.
demonstrate that yes, they are a great founders. They are great
Hmm.
individuals. They raise money. I know a founder. They raised their first check as $1 million. Right? They
Hmm.
created autonomous, autonomous driving things, autonomous driving technology for India. They raised one
Hmm.
million as a first check, right?
Yeah,
students, not from great
yeah.
colleges,
Udemy did it.
right?
Udemy also did it. These students, they
Again,
put
what's
their
the value?
YouTube 1 million.
What's the value proposition and everything, right? And I think that's where the whole conversation is all about, right? That what's the value
Yeah,
proposition in that way? I think that is something that should not get carried away with all these.
yeah.
Look,
We are hearing funding, but never we
two,
hear about value
there are
proposition.
more than 2 lakh startup companies registered in India, or maybe more,
Hmm.
right? Only I've shown the figures. Only 10,000 got some funding, some way or other, grants or something, right? So imagine the percentage. Out of those,
Exactly.
100 got in the unicorn level or something like that, right?
Hmm.
So look, it's difficult. I mean, not difficult, but let's say it's also like it takes a lot of work. It's not
Lot
that
of hits. Yeah.
it's a journey, right? I mean, if you think that यार startup खोलेंगे लोग आके पैसे की बरसात करेंगे, ऐसा नहीं होगा. Being very
Yeah,
very
yeah,
honest.
yeah. Yeah, let's take this last question. I think I missed it earlier.
Yeah.
Chandrakala Raju is
Can
asking.
we
So, if
start
we
the
are an
start?
employee, yeah. So, can we start a startup if you are an
So
employee?
I think Chandrakala, there is a lot of examples where people do that. As long as it is not conflicting, you are not stealing from your employer or the company you are working in. I don't see that as a problem. As long as
Mhm.
there's no conflict, people do that. In the today's world, there even on Shark Tank, a lot of people come in and say, "Hey, look, we are doing this job, but we have built this business now. We need funding so that I can quit the job." So I don't see this as a problem, given that there is no conflict of interest. You are not stealing your employers. I mean, that's more, that's what I can only
Mm,
say. That look, as long as you believe that you are doing something, you're doing something, and you are creating an e-commerce platform and selling some products. I don't see, nobody has a problem if you're doing on, not affecting your jobs and everything. I don't see it as a
mm,
problem. That would be my take on that.
yeah. A lot of people do it in many ways. Everything is possible. When your mom is the director and your father is the director,
Absolutely.
and you are an employee of the
No,
company, so things are
it's
happening. Huh? Whoever wants. Great,
okay. I
great. So,
think,
folks,
yeah.
yeah, thank you, Govind. Really appreciated that you took your time out for this. I think, folks, we are going to end the session. I think we've had very good Q&A. I see some questions coming now. Uh, so so yeah, I mean, just email me. We can see that after 1 hour session, Govind's throat is like even like in a bad shape. So folks, please send me your questions. You can also follow Govind on LinkedIn. He's conducting a lot of LinkedIn live sessions on startups, on valuation, like Neha Makkar is asking, on product market fit. Recently he did it. And also I can see in your LinkedIn live there are many sector specific events also, like just recently I think you are in the semiconductors. So folks, please follow Govind and have a look at the live sessions that he's doing, and some very very eminent personalities are coming and speaking with Govind on LinkedIn live. So folks, thank you very much for your attention. I wish you a great evening. We'll end the stream here. And I hope you had some takeaways from this session, especially those questions in the beginning, which is more about introspection and not just about funding. And yeah. So thank you. Looking forward to have you in the future sessions. Govind's LinkedIn profile is in the description of the YouTube video. So just in case you were looking for. Yeah, regarding feedback form, I'll send you after the event. So no worries. And thank you, everybody. We'll end the stream. Thank you, Govind. Yeah,
Thank
bye bye.
you. Thank you all. Bye bye.